So have you taken the time to make some graphics for your Zoom presentation? You've set up OBS or Ecamm and you're really excited to just up level your Zoom presentations. But when you actually get to that presentation, you realize it's blurry. The resolution on Zoom really starts to degrade the quality of these graphics that you spent your time putting together. Now, if you have been here before, you will know that I'm a big fan of sharing from a second monitor, but not everyone has a second monitor, or maybe you need that second monitor for something you're doing with your Zoom meeting. So what can you do? Well, we are going to talk about that today because there is a really affordable option, and it's really creating a virtual monitor. Now, if you are brand new and you don't know me, my name is Kat and I help people to create more professional and engaging online presentations. And I am a big fan of creating a production using OBS or Ecamm. You can have overlays and animations and you can have slides with you beside them. And I just love that. However, when it comes to using Zoom, Zoom was not built for that. We're sort of hacking Zoom, asking it to do more than it's really set up for. So if you're fortunate enough to have a business account, education account, enterprise, you actually might have full HD and you can have a really nice high resolution image and your virtual camera looks great. But for many of us, we do not have that luxury. For example, as a solo entrepreneur, it does not make sense for me to pay for a business account, which you need multiple licenses. That doesn't make any sense, but it means I don't have access to HD. So my workaround, which I've shared in a previous video, is to actually share your production through the screen share option in Zoom, because the screen share is a higher resolution sharing. And so that is what I typically do with my groups as a way to work around this. Now, the way that I do that is whether you're using Ecamm or OBS, I will have the output of that production sent to a second monitor, and then in Zoom, I share that monitor. So you see the full production, just like right now, I am using Ecamm. So anything that is in this Ecamm window that I'm working on, I send that out to that monitor, and that's what everybody sees. So that's how I work around it. Is it ideal? No, but we have to keep it in perspective. We are asking Zoom to do things it wasn't built for. So I'm fine with a workaround. Also, I'm working on another little investigation that might help with this resolution. But for today, I want to talk about this little guy. So this is what we call well, it has a few names: headless monitor, ghost monitor, dummy monitor. Essentially, you're plugging in HDMI as if you're plugging in a monitor, but there's no actual monitor. Sort of like a virtual camera. I'm creating my camera, or a virtual microphone where I'm sort of creating a virtual microphone. Well, today we're going to talk about a virtual monitor. So I'm curious, aside from Chris, who I know is here today and has used this, has anyone else tried this? If you're here today in the chat, let me know, have you ever tried this before? So the beauty of this, and the reason I like it, is let's go to my overhead shot here. So ignore all of this, and let's say I am just working with a laptop. If all I have is a laptop and I don't have a second monitor, being able to just add a dummy monitor or headless monitor allows me to then have a second monitor without actually having to add a second monitor. And if you have, maybe you have a second monitor, but maybe you want to have your notes on your second monitor, so you actually want a third. And if you actually think about my setup, because I have a teleprompter, I do have 3 monitors. And frankly, I love being able to send my production to my third monitor, which is my teleprompter monitor. And then I can use both my main screen and my second screen to be able to run a demonstration or do all sorts of things. So it is actually really helpful to have that extra real estate. So I'm going to talk about how that actually works. I want to take a look though and see if anyone else has tried this. So let's see here. We've got a few comments and okay. Been frustrated with Zoom blurring. The Ecamm virtual cam really shows up with it. Yes. So if you have, especially if you have large text, it's usually okay, or large graphics, people can typically see them. but otherwise it's kind of blurry. And if we take a look at my screen, so right now I have the host is my MacBook, and I have entered the meeting from my computer, which technically it's only 2 people. It's supposed to be a higher resolution, but even when we take a look at it, so you see here, so this is on my iMac. I have joined this meeting. It's kind of blurry. I mean, you can still read it, but the quality is not great. And when you add a third person, it degrades even more. So what we are going to look to do is share this slide here. So I've just created one slide in OBS. And yes, this is a little bit of a hint. This is the name of my presentation for the Leap into Live Streaming Bootcamp. And it comes with a resource. And that's a sneak peek of the resource. And also I realize you're seeing a lot of the same picture of me, and that's just because I need to get new photos taken. So before we head over to how that works, and yeah, so the second monitor is really nice. I like having that second monitor. And doesn't HD increase the load on your system and attendees? So it should not increase the load on attendees, but it does. You have to check if you are using HD with Zoom. You have to make sure that you have enough bandwidth. So check your upload speed, make sure you test it, because you are sending more information. But anytime you are sharing your screen through Zoom, it is showing at a higher resolution. And that's why you can share your screen on Zoom and people can see details when you share your screen. So you're doing the same thing. You're going to be showing that higher resolution by sharing the screen. And just bought it. That's exciting. You'll have to let me know. Seriously, so you get a 3-pack of these for, in Canada, it's $15. I think in the US it's $12. I don't know for the UK. Maybe Chris, you can tell me. A few other people have not tried it. And Rod is saying, I never share my camera. I always share the second monitor. Yeah, I love the second monitor is just higher quality. The other benefit is that it puts it into that full screen mode. So it focuses on your presentation instead of, I mean, you can spotlight yourself, or you could pin yourself or spotlight yourself. So that would push out your presentation if you are using the HD, but it is kind of nice that it focuses on that presentation. So I do sort of like having that added benefit to it. And yeah, Bjorn saying you can check how much packets are dropped if you stream HD, and that should give you a hint. So yeah, you can check on the quality, what's the actual resolution of your Zoom meeting. And the video I'm working on, I will show you an actual live demonstration where you can see some changes that take place live with your Zoom resolution of your meeting. Okay, so let's get into this. So the way I've set it up on my MacBook. So here I have a presentation. And so this is my Zoom presentation on my MacBook. You can see me as a guest. I don't have my camera on for this. And down below, this is OBS. So I just set up one scene in OBS. I used a static photo because I don't have a camera set up at the right level for me to actually add my real camera into OBS. But I am feeding this virtual camera in here. Now, what I typically tell people is to have a higher resolution, you want to share your screen. But right now, if we go to share my screen, and all I really have is my desktop or OBS, but this is OBS, the actual application, and I don't want to show that. I don't really have other options. So what I am going to do, and when you're in OBS, if we go down here, and if you right click on this, you can see options. And this is just an OBS option for Ecamm. You would go to your output video monitor. But here you can see that there's an option to do a full screen projector or a windowed projector. Now the windowed projector might be okay if you have one monitor. However, it has the window bar at the top, and I don't like that. So what I'm going to do now, let's go back to the main cam. So I'm going to show you. This is what I'm using for this particular laptop because I do not have an HDMI outlet. So if your computer has HDMI, great, just plug this directly into the HDMI. If not, so I guess this is a cost consideration that these guys, you can get a 3-pack for $15, but if you don't have an HDMI adapter, then that will be a consideration for you. I already bought this one a few years ago because of having to plug into other HDMI outlets or devices. So I've just plugged it into here. So let's actually plug this in. Okay, so I've just put this in here. You see the screen does that thing whenever you have a second display attached. You will see that. This is a little distracting. Okay, so everyone can see my YouTube stats as well. So now we've got this plugged in, and I'm actually going to switch to my, here we go. Oh, okay, so this is weird. So this is me trying to share my MacBook, but I haven't set up the actual display. So I don't know if you can see this. I am opening up my system preferences. It looks really messy right now because it's not sharing the way I want it. So what I'm doing, and I have this awkwardly over here, and I go to displays. So the reason I didn't do this in advance because I wanted you to see it. So right now you're seeing two displays. And what I want to do is go to my arrangement and make sure that you're not mirroring the displays, which I am not. And then you can actually see now that there's a second monitor, even though I don't have a second monitor. Now it's really awkward that it's showing up like this in Ecamm through my NDI. And I think that's because it's trying to push the entire display through the scan converter. But for the purposes of the actual demonstration, which might be thwarted, it's a full disclosure, as you can see, I practiced this on the MacBook, but I did not practice this coming into Ecamm. So that is looking a little bit awkward, and I apologize for that. But let's see. I'll go back to that even though it's really awkward. Is there a way to change it? No. So when you open up your displays, you're going to see that you have two, even though I do not have an actual second monitor. You can move these around if you want, but you don't really need to, because what you're really going to focus on is when you share the meeting. So right now, you can't see the display very well. So, okay. Any suggestions in the comments here of how I can show you this? I mean, I guess I can go to my overhead camera. It's just not going to be high resolution. But over here, what I'm doing in my Zoom is that I have my Zoom meeting down here. And when I click screen share, I am going to now see that there's a second desktop, which wasn't there before. And I know that this is extremely tiny for you to see, but you definitely would not see that on the other share. And so I can actually pick desktop. Oh, wait. It's one of those mornings. I'm just having one of those mornings where tech has thrown me for a loop. So the first thing I want to do is actually go back to OBS, and I want to make sure my microphone also makes it really hard to see. I'm going to go into OBS, and I am going to share full screen projector, which let's see if you can see this at all. Yeah, you can see a little bit. It's just awkward. So in OBS, I'm saying full screen projector preview. And now I can see that I have a second display here. So I'm going to choose this. And so now I'm sending out this presentation, and you can actually see it on the virtual dummy display here in Ecamm, which is awkward. If we go to my overhead shot though, you'll see that on the computer, I can't actually see that. All I see here is that I just see my OBS. I don't actually see the projector, the preview. But now when I open up my share screen, I can see that desktop 2 shows that. So now we're going to go to the main camera while I share this screen in Zoom, and maybe I can show an example on my other computer. So now what has happened, if we go to my iMac second monitor, this is the Zoom meeting. My picture-in-picture is over my fake picture-in-picture. But now if I were just a participant watching this meeting, I would see this now, and you can see how clean and clear it is compared to before. Now, the other thing I always recommend personally with these Zoom meetings is I don't like to see my video. So I usually will stop my video so that everyone is just focusing on the video there. I feel like that was really confusing because of that mess up with how the NDI was sharing into Ecamm, but does this make sense? So let's go back and check out some of these here. And Bjorn's saying, also don't forget in which port you put the USB-C HDMI converter, otherwise it will be another desktop every time. Okay, that's helpful to know. Live quirks are the best. Yeah, people really like seeing things go wrong, including me. It always makes me feel more human. So I hope all of you right now who are watching this demonstration feel better about yourselves when things go wrong, because they definitely do. But I am hoping it makes sense. So I see this question here, OBS Studio. So right now to go live, I am using Ecamm, and typically I use Ecamm most of the time for my virtual camera because I have so many scenes set up, and personally, I'm a big fan of the Ecamm interface. However, I wanted to show the OBS demo on my laptop because I know there are a lot of OBS users, so I wanted to share that as well. But right now, my demo is using OBS. And would that have 30 frames per second when screen sharing? So I do know that your frame rate, the frames per second, is not always going to be the highest quality for Zoom, because Zoom is doing whatever it can to conserve bandwidth, because millions of people around the world are using Zoom. And that's one of the reasons also they limit who can use the HD version. That is why they compress down that video resolution. Most of the time, the video resolution is like in the 300s. It's really, really low, but it's enough to see the face, because Zoom just cares that you can show up and see someone else's face. They don't necessarily want to see every little piece of your face. It doesn't need to be high resolution. Now, when it comes to screen sharing, obviously, they need to have that higher quality, but I don't specifically know for sure exactly how it affects the frame rate. And thank you for the just running with it. So my question though, for all of you who are here, does this make sense, this demonstration? So to summarize, you plug in this, and then you send your Ecamm or OBS production to this fake monitor. So you suddenly have a second or third monitor that is showing your production. And then in Zoom, you say, I want to share that monitor. And then you share that so they see a clear version of your production. And then I do recommend turning off your camera. If we go back, just as an example, if we go here and I'm watching this presentation and I haven't turned off my camera. So there are two options. One is that so you can have it, and some people say, I like seeing the mini version. Personally, I don't. The other thing you can do in your Zoom meeting is I can actually change the camera. So instead of using my OBS camera, I could say I want to use my FaceTime camera, which is one of the worst angles possible right now, but this is my FaceTime camera. So if I actually had a proper angle with my computer, yeah, let's not keep that on. So if I actually had a proper angle, you can actually just use your regular camera if you want, but if you're on screen with it, then they still see two of you. So my preference is if you are placed in your production, just to turn off your camera. So that's what I recommend personally. Okay, so I'm seeing here, what does it look like when you spotlight and share screen with additional monitor? Well, so if you're sharing your screen, it's going to prioritize that. So it will actually take over. So anytime you've been in a Zoom meeting, if someone shares their screen, it usually takes over your screen, which, by the way, Stream Deck, you can put a hotkey to actually get out of that full screen. I know I do that all the time, and then I can position the screen share that someone is showing to the exact shape that I want. So it will prioritize that, not you. But if you, let's say you and one other speaker are doing a presentation, I believe that you can actually, if you have yourself and the other person spotlighted, then see how over here, it's just me as the speaker, but on the side here, let's see if I can bring my mouse. Yeah, you can't see my mouse. Underneath me, we would have the other panelist or the other speaker would actually be there. So that would be an option that you can consider, is spotlighting more than one person, so that while the slides are showing, I believe that that is how you set that up. I don't have another person to test that with right now, even though I've had really kind offers from people to be part of these tutorials when I need some extra people, which is really nice. And Yeah, the FaceTime cam doesn't make sense if you want idea. Well, so it wouldn't be my FaceTime cam. So if we take my Zoom on my main computer, so on my iMac, I would have my, like this camera. So I could have this camera feeding into Zoom, and then I can have my production so that they're not seeing the production overlaid, but mostly I just want to keep that camera off. If I'm in that production with my camera, then I just have that as the main focus. And I see, can you show us the button on the Stream Deck for the screen share? Okay, so let's take a look. Let me see, actually. So let's stop this screen share and I can bring up my Stream Deck configuration. Let's do that. Okay, so so what I have here, let's bring over my Stream Deck. We're going to now switch to this view. So this is my Stream Deck configuration. So for any of you who have a Stream Deck, this is sort of my default. So just my day-to-day if I'm joining meetings. So I have my priority of these 8. And this one right here is how you can either enter or exit full screen if someone's screen sharing. So it is Shift Command F for Mac. But if you go into Zoom and you click on your preferences, and here we go, you go into keyboard shortcuts, you'll see all of the keyboard shortcuts. So what I went into here and I basically just scrolled down to see, okay, what are all the options? Sometimes they change, and went through and I noticed this one, enter and exit full screen mode. So you can also edit the shortcut if you want to customize the shortcut that you want. So if you find, let's say you're taking notes while someone's presenting, but their presentation is taking over your whole screen, you can actually exit that full screen mode. You could do it with that shortcut on the Stream Deck, and then you can position it however you like. So hopefully that helps. And I am going to switch back on my Stream Deck so I can actually control this live stream. Also, I see this. That is very exciting. I'm so excited to have all these people here, and now I feel like I'm really behind in the comments. So let's take a look. Can you show the screen share view before actually switching accepting? So I was trying to. So what I might be able to do is show you on my iMac, because when I go to this, because of this dummy monitor, it's like, this is not helpful for you. So let's go over here and I'm going to close this. So let's say I'm actually sharing a production. So right now, because I'm live, I am sharing my production from Ecamm to my teleprompter monitor. So if I wanted to show my Ecamm production, I would say share screen. Of course, I have to enable, I have to allow other people. Oh, geez. I'm just gonna keep rolling with it. Okay, now I should have permission. Okay, here we go. So when I go to see this, I can see that desktop 3, that is my third monitor, which is my teleprompter monitor, which has my Ecamm presentation there. I would click on this, and then I would click share. And then I'm actually now sharing. So let's see what this looks like. Yeah, that's still gross. But let's unplug. Okay, let's go back to my main camera. I'm going to unplug this second monitor. We're going to do this the reverse. So now if I go to look at here, you can, oh, yeah, I should have known that. Can I have a do-over? Can we just do this over again? Maybe I should just record this and upload it separately. I feel like it's a hot mess today, but I'm so glad that you are here with me and rolling with it. So hopefully you understood the concept. So I've got this is my Zoom, and when I say share screen, let's stop this share. We'll do this one more time. Share screen, and then you can pick your second monitor. So now if I actually did go back, I'm going to close this. If I go back to my laptop, so this is my laptop, right now, because I unplugged that virtual monitor, this is why you can see the whole screen. If I click share screen, you don't see that second monitor anymore. As soon as I have the dummy plug in, you would see a second monitor, and I would have my OBS or my Ecamm projecting to that second monitor, and I would choose that and share the production that way. Yeah, I'm gonna get an award for the most confusing demonstration. So let's see what this question is. What difference is there from this device and a regular display adapter but does not connect to a monitor? I don't know. Is there another version of this? Did anyone else answer that? So a regular display adapter. So, oh, okay. I think I understand. So let's reread this. What's the difference from a device and a regular display adapter but not connected to a monitor? So if you just have a plug, let's say you just have an HDMI cable that could plug into a monitor, there's no monitor. So this is also called an emulator. So it emulates a monitor. And so my understanding, very rough, is that people will use these monitor emulators to run things like cryptocurrency, or if you need a device that in order to run something, it technically needs to have a monitor attached, but you don't actually want to have a monitor attached, or you don't need to see what's going on. It's just kind of doing its thing and running. Then this is the other use. That is a very rudimentary understanding of the emulator. But when you look this up, you'll see stuff about like cryptocurrency and other things, all these other reasons. Whereas when this was recommended by Chris, it's really just a way of having an extra monitor without actually having an extra monitor. But simply having an adapter plugged in will not do anything. This actually emulates a display, and it has a resolution. And so you can see the resolution when you go to buy it, and so it is a high definition resolution. So it will be a high quality resolution that you're seeing. So if you are going and looking for, so this is D-Tech. If you are going and just searching for a dummy monitor, ghost monitor, headless monitor, check the resolution as well, because that does matter. I hope that answers your question. Is your laptop directly connected to your other Mac? It is not. And the reason why is because I ran out of, so typically I would use this to plug in my MacBook to an HDMI cable to a capture card. And I often I use a capture card to bring in my second device, but I don't have an extra one of these adapters. So I chose NDI as my option for sharing the monitor today. So I was using Scan Converter, which is the NDI software that will make the camera show up. And that's the problem. So the Scan Converter was kind of showing that really ugly side by side. Whereas I believe if I were connected to the capture card, and so plugged in that way, connected directly to my Mac, that would have probably been a better demonstration. Also, right before this, I thought it would have been better if I had a longer cable. Oh, I just thought of it now. I could have used my phone as another camera right now. So if we go to my, actually, well, no, I'll just show you here. So this is my overhead camera. It's just a webcam on a little, what is that, Joby on a light stand. So it's super low tech, and that's my overhead. But because of the way the cable is, I can't put it on the other side of me. I really wanted it to be on the other side of me so I could actually just have it low down showing you my computer. Obviously, I didn't think of it in time until right now that I could have probably used one of the NDI cameras with my phone and had that set up on an angle where you all could have seen the laptop, and I wouldn't have to necessarily share the display, which is obviously the thing that was causing problems. I feel like this is going to be a very specific crowd who's going to appreciate this, this live stream. Okay, so Patrick's saying, if you don't spotlight while you're screen sharing, you and the participants might see the gallery view, so sometimes it's good to spotlight too. Okay, that's a great point. Yeah, and Zoom does give the viewer some of those choices. Do you want to see gallery? Do you want to see just the speaker? And so people can change that around. So you can still have your camera as a floating head, and the shared So you can still have your camera as a floating head and the shared screen using overlays through OBS. Yes. Yes, in OBS you can set up, so similar to this scene that I have right here, this is my floating head right here, and then I have my screen share. You can set that up in OBS. So that's one of the main draws for me, is if I'm presenting and I want to share my screen or I want to share slides, but I want to have me there with it, then I would be setting up that scene. So you set up that scene in OBS and then you share that to the second monitor, and then you're sharing the second monitor. So on your, whenever I do a Zoom meeting, I can see exactly, because I actually have 3 monitors, I can see the exact production that I am sending out to everyone. That's one disadvantage to this virtual monitor, is that you don't actually see the preview, but when you're controlling your production, so that's Ecamm or OBS, you see what they're seeing. It's just you're seeing the preview and they're seeing the actual output. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's see. Greetings from Indonesia. Hello. Love your idea. Have you ever tried to use a second camera screen share in Zoom? I think I might need second camera screen share in Zoom. Can you provide more detail of what you mean there? When I turn off my camera, it displays a pic. Any way to not have it show up? So I agree that this is a pain. I don't love this. And I do, so while I don't think you can do much about it on the actual presentation side, I'm pretty sure that if you are, let's say, recording the call, I'm fairly certain that in the Zoom settings, and I could confirm this, you can actually turn off the speaker, like when you're in screen share. I think you can choose to not have that. Because my complaint about that, I really wish you could just toggle that off, and maybe I'll do a little more research to see if that's possible. Because when someone joins from a mobile device, it will show the slides and it'll actually put your box over the top corner. And to me, that's really distracting. And I think that is something when you're putting together a presentation to maybe consider when you're laying out your slides or the visuals or whatever you're showing, is that somebody who's tuning in from a mobile device is going to have some of that blocked off. And I think that's a really important consideration to think about, because I was actually watching a call yesterday and they were showing slides, and their window, now they weren't using a production, they just had slides and themselves, but they were blocking that corner because Zoom wanted to show the speaker and the slides. So if anyone here happens to know if you can do that, please put it in the comments. I do think that's a worthwhile thing to look into. Okay. Let's just see. I'm a little bit behind. Oh, am I having echo? Is that happening? Funhouse mirrors. Oh, or was that from my, I'm just really behind. I think I'm just really behind. Okay. Yeah, I'm just really behind. I'm liking Hot Mess because it's showing what can happen and how to fix. I appreciate it, that your comment, and I'm glad that you appreciate me being Hot Mess. Don't re-record. Enjoying every bit of this live. Oh, I'm glad to hear it. I think this is a demonstration or a tutorial that is kind of specific, but maybe I'll try to have a cleaned up version. Global audience. Yes, I love all the different countries and knowing where people are tuning in from. That's really exciting. I promise it does work. It does. It does work. So just when you're trying to do a demonstration and you're trying to bring in your scenes, and I was using NDI, I was using too much technology. So I think and I think actually you saw at the start when I shared that OBS, you could see that I shared the screen and it worked. And when I was trying to show you exactly how to do it, that's where things started to go left. And so I'm going to sort of summarize that the reason you would want to have one of these bad boys is if you do not have an extra monitor, or maybe you do have a second monitor, but you want to use that for your meetings and you would like to project your production to a second monitor so that in Zoom you can share that monitor and have that high resolution. So that is the type of thing that you can do if you are trying to take your online presentations up to the next level, add some of those graphics and that nice visual element for people, and it will help you to create a more professional and engaging online presentation.